Hi everyone, I'm Robert Anthony and welcome back to my channel. It's great to have you here. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so you can join me on my journey where I share with you the power of travel, wellness, and mindset. Today, we're gonna talk about the differences between being an Emirates cabin crew and a flight attendant back in your home country. There's three main things I'm going to speak with you about today, and the first one is about the flexibility. The second is about unions, and the third is a lifestyle versus having a job. So I've broken it down into these three topics because I feel that is the most important information that I can give you in kind of a bite-sized video. I don't want to talk too much. I know I tend to ramble. Gemini Moon, anyone else relate? So I'm going to try to keep it short, but these are the three biggest things that I have found to be major differences that impact your experience between working in Dubai with Emirates and coming back and working back home. First of all, it's interesting that over in that part of the world, it's called cabin crew. That is typically a term that's used with the Gulf carriers, international carriers, and many of you in America or North America, I would say probably use the term flight attendant. Technically, cabin crew just means all the people that are working on the aircraft, but it's more of a term that's used, like I said, in those parts of the countries, and flight attendant kind of in North America. So they're interchangeable, but there really is a difference between being a cabin crew and a flight attendant. So the first one I'll talk to you about is actually that being a cabin crew is really like a lifestyle, and being a flight attendant is kind of just a job. That was the most surprising thing that I found when I came back to America, is that it really just feels like a job. Like, you have a job, you go to work, you're responsible to getting to work on time, you're responsible for your uniform. You know, a lot of people just make it their job. There's some people that literally, I don't know why you would do this, but they are just flight attendants. They don't even use their travel benefits. Now, I don't know why you would want to work in a metal tube, you know, with the type of people that sometimes we have to deal with and everything that comes with this industry if you're not even going to use the travel benefits. I mean, let's be real, that's the main reason most people sign up for this job, besides for the flexibility, is those benefits. Because most of the time, until you've paid your dues, it's not even really well paying, and you know, you're just doing it to be able to hop on other carriers and live your best life. What I mean by lifestyle, for those of you that are flight attendants and don't know what it's like to be cabin crew, is Emirates is a whole setup. It's a very well-oiled machine. They have everything sorted out for you. You move there, they give you your visa, they give you your accommodation, you have your own bedroom, your own bathroom. We don't live in compounds. That's a rumor that I've been asked quite a lot about. The company basically just owns properties across Dubai, and you live in those properties with other crew. So it really kind of feels like an adult college, because you're surrounded by crew, you live with other crew, but you do have your own bedroom, your own bathroom, your own privacy. There's a bus route that picks you up, so you never have to worry about getting to work unless you live outside of accommodation, and then some people drive themselves. But I don't know why you would want to drive after like a 16-hour flight. I was always dead, and I was so thankful that I lived in accommodation and took the bus. We also had dry cleaning, so we never had to do anything laundering with our own uniform. We just dropped it off before the flight and picked it up on the way back. So it's a lifestyle because you're in Dubai and you kind of sign your life away to this company, right? They pretty much own you. Everything is through them. Your accommodation, your health insurance, you have to follow the rules in accommodation, visitor rules, policies, things like that. And they kind of own your schedule. There's not a lot of flexibility. So you're really kind of just working what they give you. It's usually always around 100 flying hours, 90 to 100, sometimes more depending. And you're just in Dubai on like another layover, essentially. You know, these trips with Emirates, some of them can take you out of the city for like 9 days. Because you have to think, if there's a multi-sector pairing, something like for instance, Rio, Buenos Aires, where you go from Dubai to Rio, you're there for 48 hours, so that's a full 2 days, then Buenos Aires, then back, so that's like a 10, 11, 12-day trip. I mean, time just flies by. And the thing that's interesting is, although you're going through all of these time zones, I personally didn't really feel the jet lag as much as I do in America because you're constantly in motion. So your body is just so confused that you're never really catching up anyway. And you're so exhausted in Dubai that you will probably just pass out and try to catch up on as much sleep as you can, no matter what the timing is. Versus being a flight attendant now, you know, I pretty much do like transcons, so like west coast of America to east coast or to Hawaii. So those flights, you know, my longest flights are maybe 6 hours, but then you kind of, if you have that thrown into your schedule, then you kind of feel the jet lag a little bit more because you're primarily on this, you know, your home-based time. Versus Emirates, where you're just literally all over the place and your body is just extremely tired and confused all the time. Other than that, it is a lifestyle because, I mean, hello, look at Dubai. If you haven't looked up Dubai, you're like way living under a rock. It is the most popular tourist destination in the world. Everything is possible there, and it's definitely very inexpensive to live this kind of flashy, glamorous Instagram life. To have some of the same things that you go to and do in America, it would be very expensive. So people say Dubai is expensive, which is true, but because of the discounts that crew gets and the deals that you can find for brunches and things like that, it actually is not that expensive. To do so in America would be, with tipping and all of those, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So that leads me to the other thing, which is obviously the pay and kind of the fact that you get all of these discounts, crew get gym access. So it's really like your life in Dubai has already been built around being cabin crew, and that is your identity. Versus when you're living in your home country, you know, you're just a flight attendant and that's your job. And most people are doing other things on the side. For instance, I now have the flexibility and time to write a book, to do acting gigs, to do modeling gigs. So it's kind of like I'm living my life and then I just go to work and do my job and get my travel benefits. So I did it out of order because I think that's the biggest thing. Being with Emirates is definitely a lifestyle, and I think other international crew can relate to that as well. Maybe even people that work for Delta and they're very senior and they're doing a lot of international trips. It's just an entirely different, you know, experience to be going to other countries consistently. You know, I would always do my shopping and things like that overseas versus if you work, you know, in the United States of America and you're just going to different cities. So that's the main difference. The second main difference is the flexibility. I know y'all are struggling at Emirates and it's never gonna change, unfortunately. When I joined there, you did have opportunity to play with days. There were times when you could maybe get 5 days off in a row. So I remember some people from my training batch were going all over because they only planned to stay a year. So they were taking every opportunity, even if that meant they were landing at 6 a.m. in Dubai, they would jump on a flight, go to Europe somewhere for a couple days just to make use of the travel benefits. Then during my time there, those days off really shrank because they started working us to the maximum, and it's extremely hard to do anything there that you want with your schedule. When I said they own you, it's pretty much, here is your flying roster. Yeah, you can bid and yeah, you can swap. Good luck. It's kind of a joke. I don't know if things have improved, but swaps are really difficult. People are very picky and, you know, nobody wants to really ever swap. I found it as an American very hard to ever, for instance, get my home city, Seattle, to come back to because that was a very popular route. So even during Christmas and things like that, people would never pay it forward and try to help you go home. So when I worked there, people were very possessive of their trips. I don't know if that's changed, but even if you find a swap, then you have to deal with the legalities, right? So all of these things, as a flight attendant in the US, you can relax. If you wanna cram all of your flying into 12 days and then have a stretch of 7 to 10 days off, you can do that. There's people that literally live overseas. They live in Europe, Australia, far, far away, and they commute from other countries, stack their trips together, do all of their flights, and then go home. And then they're dropping their other flights that they don't wanna work. So as a flight attendant, the flexibility you have is really amazing. When I came here, I was like, oh, wow, this is what it's like to really be able to manage your life. And that's one of the reasons people do this job. It's definitely not for the money, let me tell you that, but that's gonna be a whole nother vlog. So with Emirates, you know, The swaps are very difficult because they have all of these rules that you're not allowed to like waive. In America, you can kind of like do whatever you want because it's like, all right, that's on you. Like this is what you're supposed to do. And if you are clicking the button that says, I waive this rest policy, that's on you and that's your prerogative. At Emirates, that's not the case. They also have like a male to female ratio they want, certain speakers on every flight. So it's very, very difficult to be able to swap anything. So pretty much your roster that you get is what you're gonna fly, unless you really spend a lot of hours working some magic. One thing that I really enjoy about our system at my current airline is it's called open time. And we're able to see what at Emirates would be only available to network ops. So when they have people call sick or drop things, they get those flights and they kind of hold them. We have a system where we see that right away. So if you have a flight that you don't like and something better pops in, you can grab it. And you can really like pretty much whenever I get my roster or schedule, that's another difference. At Emirates, it's the roaster, they roast you. And in the US, it's, you know, your schedule. When I get my schedule, it's normally not anything that I really want because I'm quite junior, so my bids don't really work. But we have a day where people can drop, so then I pick up those flights, and then you get this open time system, so you're just watching it and you're moving things around. You can also shift days around with other people. You can pick up reserve days if you want. So it's very flexible, and the open time system is a lifesaver for me. The other thing when it comes to the flexibility is you're gonna start on reserve with most carriers. I think Delta might be the only one where everyone does a couple of reserve days. Otherwise, you're starting on reserve where you don't necessarily have flexibility, but at least you do know which days you're on reserve. You have certain blocks versus at Emirates, when we had our reserve months, it was basically a cycle. So everybody had reserve for 1 month every single year. And you were on reserve every single day until 6 p.m. Then they told you the next day, okay, now you have a day off. So they kind of own you for that month. But there, it's quite fun because that's usually when you would get your best trips. But it's definitely a true reserve. You have no life because every day you're waiting until 6 p.m. when your roster updates, so you know if you're off or you have standby or you have airport standby or you have a trip the next day. Versus when you're starting as a new flight attendant in the US, you're gonna get certain blocks. You're gonna be AM or PM reserve, maybe sometimes a 24-hour reserve. So it's pretty rough. I can cover that in another video, but those are kind of the dues you have to pay because, you know, the industry in the US and this part of the world, it's really built on seniority. There is seniority at EK, but because you have to be upgraded through cabins and things, it's a little bit different. In airlines here, it's really like when you start, you have to prove your worth and you're gonna go through this horrible like hazing of reserve. And then if you survive, you get a line, you celebrate and your freedom. You know, kind of like at Emirates, the horrible hazing is working in economy. So those of you that are lucky enough that they're hiring a bunch, you get upgraded very fast. Maybe you only work in economy for a couple months, a year, 2 years max. Not over 4 years like I did, and many of my friends watching this, we really got the bad bargain during that whole time. But, you know, that's the life. And the final thing I'll talk about is union protection. Obviously, there's no unions in the UAE. There's very strict social media policies. There's rules and laws where you're not even allowed to speak ill of your employer, talk negatively about your company. Of course, we have social media policies in the US, but it's the US, right? So we have freedom of speech. You can't be fired. I mean, I can say my true feelings about my company without being worried that I'm gonna get fired. They might put a target on your back and try to fire you for something else, so I wouldn't go crazy, but you are allowed to speak the truth, speak the facts, state your opinion, and share your life without really any repercussions. So we all pay into a union, and that union is what kind of protects your job. Delta doesn't have a union, by the way. They're trying to organize, but so most of the major carriers are governed by, I believe there's 2 flight attendant unions. So the other thing with that though is the unions are the ones that negotiate your pay. So at Emirates, all of that is set by the company. You know, you are paid for this, this, and this. You're paid this amount. Every year you get this increase. With the unions, that's a contract. And every few years, I think it's like every 7 years, those contracts get revisited and renegotiated. And that's when things like work rules can change, pay has to change, it has to keep up with inflation. And these are all things we're dealing with now. At my airline, we're actually going through a contract negotiation, and it's really bad. I'm gonna be honest, it's really ugly. Our pay has not been updated. We're on a contract from 2014. So it's 2023, I'm recording this, so that's almost 10 years of a contract because they had some extensions. So again, that'll be another video, don't wanna ramble. Another thing with the union is that they protect your job, right? I'm sure many of my friends that are watching this are part of the redundant crew, as myself was. When COVID came, Emirates broke all the rules. They didn't care. They broke all contracts. Even people that were in their 3-year contract let go. So it didn't even matter if you have a contract that was valid for you to work. They found ways around it. They even reduced our base pay, which we're supposed to get the same pay no matter what, even if we're not flying. So if you don't fly the whole month, you still are supposed to get a base pay. And they reduced that during COVID because they were like, we need to save the money in order to save your jobs. So they took that away, and then they ended up firing 30,000 people across the group. So, at the end of the day, they can do what they want because they are in charge. But when you have union protection, they're there to make sure all of those things companies abide by. And I'll just leave this last topic of sickness because I didn't mention it in the intro, but that is a big thing with Emirates. Everybody knows that the sickness is a huge, huge thing. I mean, they are just obsessively controlling about sickness. They expect you to never get sick. I went almost 8 months without calling sick once, and then I called sick, and I got an email from my manager that literally said, I hope you understand how your sickness is impacting the operation, and please manage your health. Almost 8 months with no sickness. They literally want you to be robots, whereas in the US, you just call and say, I'm sick. Even if you want a mental health day or you're caring for a family member, they can't ask you anything. There's laws protecting all of those things. So you do have a little more flexibility with sickness, but you still get disciplinary points, which is crazy to me because many states have rules where you're not even allowed to discipline employees for using their own sick bank that they have accrued. And they don't pay out your sick bank when you resign, so it's kind of like you've accrued all of this sick time, so if they're not going to pay you out for it, you should be able to use it. I don't know how many companies get around this because every time you do call sick, you get a certain amount of disciplinary points, and then it falls off after a certain amount of time, kind of like the warnings at Emirates. But if you accrue too many, then you're getting into a point where you might have to have a meeting, or you could eventually be terminated if you have like a ton of sickness. But I think the union really will protect you a lot if it comes to that. If it comes to that, I don't know anyone that's been let go for sickness. I know people don't want to get disciplinary points, but I haven't heard too many horror stories. And for the most part, you want to work. You're not calling sick. Like at Emirates, a lot of people just call sick because they don't want to do the flight, or they're pissed, or they don't want to do another turnaround, red eye all through the night to Bombay, so they need a mental health break, so they're calling sick. Versus in the US, you kind of want that money. You're still pay protected, but it's not as much as if you were to actually go on the flight and get the layover allowance and all of those things. Ultimately, I would choose flexibility over anything else that came with Emirates. This is a job now for me, and it's important for me to be able to work my life around it and not have it be my life. But I did enjoy my, over 4.5 years of life in Dubai, where my life was cabin crew, and I was perfectly happy with that being my identity and being my life. It was the adventure of a lifetime. I mean, I'm writing a book about it, so, even though of course there's always negative aspects and things and tea to spill, I don't regret any of it, and I would never want to not do it. It was some of the best years of my life, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I am happy to be a little bit more of a real person now, be on a regular schedule, be able to live my life and do what I want to do and not feel so owned by a company. So that's pretty much what I got for you today. I did touch on some things that I will elaborate in further videos, but if you have any questions about what it's like working at Emirates or leaving Emirates, I know it's very hard to leave those golden handcuffs, drop a comment below, ask me, and tell me what else you would like to see or know about in terms of the differences between being a flight attendant and a cabin crew. Until next time, be well.